Hey Jigna, it's time for another episode.
Yet again, we're back, and this one's going to be a very interesting one. We have a PR brand marketist, public speaker, lots of side hustles going on with her, and I'm super excited to talk about specifically that.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about how to do the side hustle, the do's and don'ts. Lots of questions I have for her about what goes into that, so that one day when I have a job, maybe then I can have a side hustle too. Who knows? Or this is
Yeah.
still the side hustle after that.
This is our side hustle. We just don't have a full time. Well, this feels kind of like a full time job, though. I mean, we've been cranking a lot of stuff out. So, but yeah, I think this is definitely a side hustle for sure. But it's a good one. It's a feel good one.
All right, it absolutely is a feel good one.
Yeah.
So, well, are we ready to meet our next guest?
Yeah, let's bring on Shakira Brown.
Right.
Well, here we are. We have Shakira Brown. Welcome, Shakira. How are you doing today?
Hi, Shakira.
Hey, how you doing?
We're good.
Good. We're excited to speak with you about all the side hustles you got going on, and isn't it just so needed right now, right? It's just
always.
Always true.
Side hustle.
That's true.
That's
a good point. Well, Shakira, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the audience, and yeah.
Well, today I focus mainly on professional speaking. I'm a professional speaker, award-winning branding and business communications strategist, and I have a background in TV news. I started my career out of college right into network television news. I practically was on the launch team for MSNBC. I started about 1 month after MSNBC started in 1996. And I have spent a great deal of time working in communications departments, doing branding, marketing, public relations is a big part of it. But the side hustling was always part of what I've done. And in fact, I lived as a child in an environment where that was going on. So that's really how I become a branding person, a marketing person. I did not set out to do those things. So that's what I do. If anybody wants more information, they can check me out at ShakiraBrown.com.
Shakira, thanks so much. And isn't it true, though, that when you kind of grow up in that environment, we have that need to repeat that in our lives as well, because there's familiarity with it. So what has happened, and what did you grow up with that sort of led you to have your own side hustles?
So both of my parents always had extra businesses. They had full-time jobs. My dad worked as an electrical engineer. Then he started doing electrical, working in construction. But he always had businesses. In fact, at 73 years old, he still comes up with a business I didn't know he had. I mean, we'll have a conversation. And I'm like, you did that too? From owning a laundromat to having a karate school to having a game room in the late 70s with pinball machines, to the one that he had, a storefront business that he had the longest, I believe, was the ice cream store that became a sub shop. It was ice cream / subs.
That's a man after my own heart, though. Ice cream, subs, and pinball. Where could you go wrong?
And we always used to say, "Daddy, why do you always do all these things?" And he always says to myself and my sister, "Now you guys get it, because my sister and I are the queens of the side hustle." So, and my mom, she would work a regular job, but she always wanted extra money. So there was a point where she was selling these leather handbags. I don't know if they were handmade, but they were very fancy in the 80s. They had all these, they came in different fabulous colors. And there was a woman who we called the bag lady. And she would call up, I think her name was Laverne, and she would call up and tell my mother she had new inventory. My mother would buy it and flip it. And then she got involved with somebody who was selling clothing wholesale out of New York, and she would resell it and she would literally bring the garments to her job and have a little coat rack with the clothing on it to sell at work. She worked part-time at a vision store. I mean, this is the life that I know, is to always have extra stuff going. And I will tell you, we weren't rich, but we never had days where we didn't know what we were going to eat. I meet people who are like, we didn't know if we were going to have dinner, we were eating breakfast for dinner because we only had oatmeal. Never had those issues. We weren't rich. We went on vacation, but people who worked really, really hard. So that's how I grew up. And there really is no other way. And by the way, I have a 26-year-old and he is currently side hustling.
What's he doing?
So he has a degree in psychology. So he works with intellectually disabled adults. He's a program specialist at a company in Pennsylvania. And he actually got referred out about a year and a half ago to someone who was starting up a similar company. So he actually does the same thing he does for his full-time job at a second job, doing the same type of company on Fridays. And when he first started doing this, when the guy first started the business, and my son, I'll never forget it, he texted me, it was like, Mom, I'm making money while I'm making money at the other job. Because he was still on the clock at the other job.
Right.
Because he's in the type of role where he could be nimble, where he has to go to sites to see some of the clients they have. So it gives him the wiggle room to go around and kind of do extra stuff. And I also encouraged him 3 years ago, because he's a lifelong gamer, start to monetize your gaming. So now he is a paid streamer on Twitch. He gets paid through subscriptions, and he started up a YouTube channel with edits of his streaming.
So what game does he play on YouTube? Or not, what game does he play?
He does Call of Duty, League of Legends, and some other new ones that I've never seen that are really quite quirky. But those are the main ones, Call of Duty and League of Legends.
I've got a 16-year-old who believes this is his future, is that video gaming and being paid for that, and then talk about YouTube. And now he's telling us he wants to flip couches. That's the other thing he's told us this weekend.
He must be listening to Gary Vee, because Gary Vee talks about finding stuff on the curb and flipping them.
Yes, yeah.
How do you flip couches? Just to reupholster them, or?
You clean the cushions, evidently, and
I don't know that you even need to clean the cushions. I mean,
yeah, and it's all about how you take the pictures. He told me too,
Gotcha.
and like to sell them. Then I'm like,
he's right.
Okay,
he's right. So I mean, and he can also start, Twitch streaming now too, if he wanted. It is because you just need the equipment. You guys would have to invest in equipment for him.
He also needs to do well in school. So let's.
Well, you know what? Create an incentive program around it.
There you go. There you go. I like that.
Says the marketer.
Yeah. So those are the things that's going on, and I could tell you that I didn't have to search out the side hustles. People would find out what I do, and this is early on, when I was working in television, and somehow they connected the fact that I had a journalism degree and working in TV with maybe I could do PR back then, and I didn't know what I was doing with PR, but people who had like a rap artist, they would want me to start working with them. And then when I actually switched from television in 2002, I started working at a Madison Avenue PR firm in New York City. I would meet people, even old classmates, old people I went to high school with or grammar school with, and they were like, you know what, I have a business, I need PR. And I never had to look for it. I did search out, and that was when I wanted to start my own business. I did search out an opportunity to do some PR, and I found a gentleman who was working. I don't know, I think he might have been side hustling too, but he needed more help. And we had a client that was pretty big. I mean, my first client side hustling was Born Foods? What do they call them? They do the Peeps. You know, the Easter Peep?
Yeah, I don't know who makes it, but I know the Peeps, yeah.
That company was the company I was doing side PR for through, I think, another side hustle. I never really knew exactly. I don't think he had his own business. I think he was side hustling, and then he just needed somebody to help him out.
So tell us a little bit about your side hustle and how you sort of got, I mean, it's great that you didn't really have to, you were sought after, which is great. And it looks like one of your side hustles was PR. What else? Like if there is, actually, I'll stop there. I'm going to let you answer that first before I go to my next question, because I'm 50 now.
So with side hustles, getting started with one, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to answer the question with something else I think people need to hear first, is that it's important to have an actual job that pays you, that you can rely on, because you're dealing with individuals. Hey, you might not get paid sometimes. Somebody might, and that happened, by the way, where someone decided to stiff myself and someone else I was working with on a project on the side. So you want to have something that's solid. But one way to get going with these side hustles is to understand that you don't have to tell anybody at your day-to-day employer, your 9-to-5 employer, that you're doing anything. That's number one. Unless you've signed some sort of explicit agreement that says you're not allowed to work for anyone else outside their company, then I would say just go ahead and do it. It's you that have to pay your bills, feed your family, so you just go ahead and do it. My side clients, many of them didn't know I had a full-time job. Why did I do that? It's because I felt they would use it as an excuse at some point that, oh, well, you're not giving me the full attention because you have a full-time job. And that may not have been true, but people will use things like that. So I didn't let anybody know that I had a regular job. Everybody believed that I just had my own business. And that was the way I decided to do it in that way. Now, if you are a creative person, say maybe you like to write content for someone on the side, it's the same thing. You don't have to tell anybody what you're doing. And you can just put yourself out there as a content creator of some kind, because that's actually a great side hustle because people need content.
Yeah, I've seen a lot about content creation being one of the biggest things that people can do right now, especially if you become unemployed, right? Of course, as you said, we want to find a job first that pays us the real bills, but that can be a great thing to get going. And then when you do get a good job that's full-time, keep going with it too, I think, at this point. So
that content, and also a virtual assistant. People need someone to do the things that they want to do during the day, but just don't have time.
Yep.
And sometimes that involves doing research for somebody. And if you're the type of person who doesn't mind research, it could be creating, spreadsheets. But there are people who will pay for those things. I mean, I know people who pay for everything because there's just lazy people. But there are people, there's a premium.
You have the money, right?
Yeah, you have the money, there's a premium for it.
Yeah. So virtual assistants, do you have I know Fiverr is one place you can get some really good virtual assistant support. Have you used any, or have you heard of any good ones that are out there? Any good resources?
I mean, Fiverr, of course, is one of them. Upwork,
yeah.
So many of them that you can easily have a profile on all of those sites and see what comes back at you, right? You can just go ahead and open up a profile on those. So I believe that many of them don't, charge the individuals who want to get the work. And everybody gets, they get paid on the back end from the jobs, right? That are actually secured for the individuals on there. So it's, take the time. And that's another thing, is to invest the time to get yourself out there. Even putting together a one-page website, like a resumes page. You can do that through any of the, tools that are out there, Weebly and Wix. They all have templates in there that are just one page that you can just point people to, so they can see something more of you and maybe more of your samples if you have samples.
Good point.
That's a really good point. So now, do you have any tips on anyone who want to identify a side hustle? A lot of us kind of know that we are good in certain areas or certain things, but how can we identify? Sometimes it's really tough for us to even, realize whether having that passion or that hobby and making it into a side hustle, like what is a good way to do that?
Well, you have to, everything is supply and demand, right? What do people need the most that they're willing to pay for? And I start from there. What do they need? And, how can is that something I could supply to them? So you have to look at that demand and then identify what you can supply to fill that demand. That's the best place, because why come up with something that nobody wants? You have to be able to sell it.
What about so what if you see that there are people out there that are doing it already and they're in demand? How do you compete with that group of people?
Yeah.
You don't compete with anybody. You just do what you do.
Okay.
Right.
You just
do what you do. Yeah.
Just do what you do. You just all, and the thing is, the people who want the best person will pay top dollar and won't even look at anybody else. They'll just look at, who they feel is the best. And that's a perception thing. But, don't try to compete with other people that are out there. Just present yourself at the best light and try to reach the audience that you most want to serve. It's also good to identify who you want to work with. Is there a specific industry that you want to work with, or a
Okay.
specific type of practitioner that you'd prefer to work with? You know, my sister started her, she finally left corporate this year, and she's in sales, and started, because she's been a fantastic salesperson, like number one at all the companies that she has sold for in the last 10 years. And she finally realized, after me beating her over the head, that she needed to take her style of selling and offer it to other places. She has been focused in the dental world. Okay. So she's focused on dentistry, mainly cosmetic dentistry. She's very niche. So she sells into that market specifically. And she was, when she had her regular job, her full-time job, working and selling cosmetic dentistry for a dentist, she was side hustling, working for other dentists, because other dentists would find out how great she was doing in selling for another dentist. And then, could you do it for me too? And but that has become her niche, and it's been great for her. And you can be very targeted, and your messages can be very targeted, and your money that you spend on marketing is more focused. So it's good to start from a place of who needs what you offer the most.
So how do you do that? Where do you sort of start that research? When do you start marketing, and when do you start spending money for the advertising?
So I can tell you, I didn't spend very much money on advertising until I felt like I was ready to scale the business up, right? That I wanted to take it full time. So I did things very scrappy. I use the word scrappy a lot, because that's what it requires, is, you know, just to try to learn to do things yourself. You know, I taught myself how to create websites 15, 20 years ago. And then now I could create a website for someone else. And I have done that. I have launched websites for other people. And by the way, I'm not a developer. I'm not a graphic designer, but I can make the heck out of a Wix website. And I've done that for other people and have gotten paid. But that's all because I taught myself how to do that. So if you can do as much as possible on your own, learn how to do these things on your own. All of the templated websites have great tutorials you can take to learn. You just go in there and dabble. They've made them easy. They look, you know, they have the same toolbar as a Microsoft Word document to create content sometimes. You know, drag and drop. When I counsel small business owners, I always say, if you can, you know, if you're posting to Facebook, you're ready to create your own website. You know, there's a lot of the same functionalities in there. And, you know, people get caught up in all that stuff. So take the time to try to do as much as you can on your own. Is it worth boosting a post or doing a Google ad if you can afford it? Yes. I will tell you that I don't know if they're doing this now because of the conditions we're in. But, you know, once you kind of sign up for Google ads, and after you know, maybe you invest $100 to do some Google ads, after a while, they don't see you. They start sending you coupons to do more Google ads. They'll start sending you $100 if you add 100, or $50 if you add 100 so you can get some, what I'm going to call free money from Google, continue ads. But with social media and being able to do videos and YouTube, Instagram, you know, it's endless. But, you know, a good mixed marketing campaign is good when you're looking to scale. In the beginning, you just try to do it as scrappy as possible. Use your network of people that already know you. Tell people what you're offering and get other people to promote you. That's probably the best way starting out.
Get other people to promote you. They have to like you first, right?
They have
That's a requirement, right?
They also have to believe that you're going to represent them well.
Yeah.
That's one thing about me, is that I've always presented myself very professionally throughout my entire career from the very beginning. And I have been fortunate to be referred by many, many people. And I mean, I have someone that I've worked with 25 years ago when I worked at MSNBC. I think he's even back at NBC now because he had left, and he was a videographer. He has his own videography and editing business. And I've used him over the years for different projects that I've done with clients. But every so often I'll get a text from him, and I don't hear from him annually. I'll get a text from him and he'll say, Shakira, I think I got a client for you. We haven't spoken. He doesn't ask me how I'm doing to make sure I'm still, he just assumes she's going to represent me well and on point, and she's going to be on point because I know this is her quality. And he probably also trusts if I couldn't do it, that I would just go ahead and tell him that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
but actually presenting yourself to the world in the light that you want people to see you on a regular basis is very important and crucial to getting those referrals that everybody wants.
So I want to go back and ask you a question. So you said like, I think you said your sister-in-law or your sister that does the
My
dentistry?
sister.
Your sister. Okay. So she does for multiple dentists too. Like, how do you manage that to make sure it's not if you're not a big corporation, do they still thought you need to have waivers of
It's like conflict of interest.
no non-disclosures, those kind of things. Like, what are the things that you need to think about it in a side hustle?
Only if the client asks.
Okay.
You know, I mean, first of all, if you're a professional, you're going to make sure that you're not, you know, giving information that the other person shouldn't have. You know, I'm a consultant for a small business development center in New Jersey. It's actually at the College of New Jersey. And our area is Mercer County, New Jersey. I have clients who compete against each other. I counsel them individually. I don't tell them that I counseled their competitor. I don't give them any information that they wouldn't find out on their own from about a competitor. Mm-hmm. And that's just part of being a professional and being and someone who's on the up and up as a practitioner on your own. But if a client asks you for exclusive, like, okay, I don't want you to work with anybody else in my town, I think that's worthy of a premium payment.
Yep.
Because that is, they're telling you that you can't make any more money in a square mileage or whatever. So if they're willing to pay for that, certainly agree to those terms, especially if they're willing to write extra check or make a separate deposit for such exclusivity.
There you go. So what is the markup on exclusivity? Is it like 200%?
I think you know what, and when it comes to pricing, you look at the willingness to pay. And when you start looking at willingness to pay, which means what are they willing to pay for this? And you just kind of have to base that on them. And if you start, you know, negotiation is if you start high enough, you could get down to a place that you and the other person are happy with. So, you know, if, you know, it depends on what you think you can get out of the individual. If you know a little bit about their business and their revenue stream, and, you know, and if it means something to them, you just give the number, give your high number. If they say, oh no, and then you just simply say, well, what is it worth to you?
That's a good point. Cause I think that's always the fear, like, well, where do you start?
Yeah.
How high do you go without sounding greedy, but yet, you know, you're like, I think you said, you know, you add a value. So I think, like you're saying, what are they willing then to pay for that?
What are they willing to pay? And here's the thing. I mean, you can't start low and then go high.
Yeah.
Not do that.
It doesn't usually work out well like that. Yeah.
It happened to me recently. I gotten referred for a speaking engagement, and they would not get on the phone with me to discuss anything about it. And they kept asking me for my number. I knew nothing about them. So I just started high. And I started high, and then the next thing I knew, they said, okay, yes. And then they said, well, actually, we need to pay you less. We don't have that budget. And then they tried to get me to bid. And I said, no, it's time for me to get your number, because I gave you my number first. Yeah. Now it's time for you to tell me what you normally pay. So when they ended up telling me what they normally paid, and it was between one number and one number, I took the highest one. I said, well, that's my minimum. Your high is my minimum. And I still got more money than what I would have gotten if I told them a number just out of thin air that wasn't really super high. I had to start really high up so that I could get to their number, which I still don't know if it was their number, but it's still higher than what I normally would have asked for. So it was a good situation, but I knew better than to start from a lower place, because that there's nowhere to go but lower from there.
And that's a really good point, is for a salesperson, for someone who's not a salesperson, myself, I'm not the best at sales, right? Negotiation may not be the forte for someone who's not in that sort of a mindset. So that's really interesting, because I always feel guilty if I gave a high number. You know, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And I feel like we've all been sort of taught that in some weird way, or at least I feel like I have. I don't know where I got that from, but there's that guilt, whether it's
I have
women's
that
guilt
same
or
thing. Yeah.
yeah.
I have no guilt given a high number.
That's Shakira, I need to
I'm
learn
gonna
from you.
need to channel my inner Shakira then.
I know,
like-
right? But it's true. You're absolutely right. And I mean, it kind of goes back to the job pay gap, right, with male and female and minorities versus, you know, whites and whatnot. So there is that. Just ask for what you're worth and start high. I think that's a really good lesson when it comes to business in general.
Yeah, it's okay to start high. Normally it starts a conversation.
Yeah.
If the
Mhm.
person backs off because they're turned off by the high number, then maybe they weren't even serious anyway. But someone who's serious, they'll at least want to be like, okay, whoa, that's way more than what I thought. And if you simply say, well, what were you thinking? And then let them give their number. If they decide that they don't want to give their number after that, then they're playing games.
Good point. Okay. So I guess, so once you've got this price that you really like, Shakira, or, you know, anybody who does, and they've got the side hustle going, how do you know if there's a time though to abandon a side hustle? Like, even though if it's going, you know, is it going well for you or not going well for you? If they're paying you well, but you're not loving it, what's kind of the key to know, like, maybe I should not be in this one anymore?
Yeah, you said something that was very important. You know, I'm not loving it anymore. If you're not having a good time doing the side hustle, if it doesn't make you feel good, it's time to move on. If you don't feel like talking to that client again, it's time to get rid of that client. There's sometimes what I call pain in the ass clients that you don't want to work with anymore. And when you have those, you just increase their price and then they'll go away. You know,
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
We've heard that before, right? That's sort of a trick that a lot of companies use. You can't necessarily fire your clients. You know, it has
just
happened
increase
in the
their
past.
price. Like, you know what? Our expenses have gone up. We're gonna have to charge you X. Now, you know, let me know. And usually, if you know they're not willing to pay, they'll just keep it moving. But hey, if they are willing to pay, at least you'll get a couple of more bucks to be miserable.
Well, so what about though too, like changing this type of side, or let me ask this first. How many different side hustles do you have going on right now? Like different types?
I'm always doing like 3 or 4 things at a time. So,
3 or
but
4,
they're
okay.
all related.
Okay.
I am not a person that goes off the rails and decides to do things that are wildly different. I stay within my wheelhouse. Everything is around communications, whether I'm still doing some PR work
Okay.
for some companies, the business consulting. I'm giving a lot of advice about branding, marketing, public relations. Sometimes I even give advice about speaking, because sometimes a speaker will reach out for small business advice. The professional speaking, I touch on everything with that. I mean, I can speak on any of the things that I'm already doing. So it's all related. But some people, you know, are dabblers where they, you know, they want to do creative work. Like maybe they're an artist, you know, and then they want to do something else. I interviewed an artist last week who also is a DJ. He owns a boutique where he sells some of his art and he sells some of his wife's fashions. You know, people, you know, but even that is still creative. It's still sort of related. You can keep more of them going if they're related. When they're because sometimes they overlap and they can help each other. The side hustles can support each other. And also you can help your clients connect people, things like that. So it's important to have something that you love to do, and then also be able to try to keep things closely knit so that your bandwidth doesn't get stretched too far by having to think so differently across side hustles.
Yeah, that's a good point, because then you might really lose it.
You don't want to make it hard for yourself. No, you don't want to make it hard.
Yeah, just you know, what revelations or what learnings have you had in your life with side hustles? And you've had people all around you that have had side hustles. So anything you have sort of picked up on or learned that you want to pass along for anyone that is maybe thinking of starting one?
Yeah, but when it comes to billing, if you have to bill someone for your side hustle, make sure you have a clear understanding of how you're going to be paid, when you're going to be paid. Keep your payments current.
Right.
And one of the things I did with a very good friend of mine, and it was someone that she knew personally that had hired us to do some branding and marketing work for them. And I had gotten this guy and his brother, who was his business partner, on the cover of a construction and electrical magazine for some of the work they were doing in New Jersey. And they photographer, it was a big deal. The same month I got the cover came out, that magazine came out. They told us they weren't needing our services anymore. Unfortunately, they were like 2 months in the arrears on payment. And part of that was our fault because my friend had the relationship. She wasn't really billing them on a monthly basis as she should have. She wasn't current on her billing. And they just decided to stiff us for, $2,500 or whatever it was. And it was a good lesson to learn while it didn't matter. And I say it didn't matter because I still had my full-time job. Today, working for myself, Shakira gets paid. I get paid because I'm billing on time. I have contracts where people understand the repercussions of not paying, and we have an understanding. And I don't even move if I'm not paid within the first 10 days of the next month. And it says that in the contract. But that was a good lesson that I learned. While again, it didn't matter. Yes, we lost money, but it wasn't like I couldn't pay my bills. I still had my job. So that was a lesson that I'm grateful for to have learned at that time versus after, completely leaving, having, the regular 9-to-5 job and just working for myself. And, knock on wood that no one has stiffed me since. I've been very strict and stern about getting paid. And you have to be, because if people see you're weak on that, they will exploit it.
That's so true. And have you, when you had to deal with someone that didn't, or a company that didn't pay you, how did you get your money for it? Or did you never get any money for it?
So for that one time, we never got the money for it, but we always say he got it back in karma because his high school sweetheart wife divorced him and took him to the cleaners. So, and she said she saw him like 2 years later. He looked bad. I was like, oh, he got what he deserved. But as far as anybody else who maybe they try to be a little late, I just stopped working. It's in the contract that if I'm not paid by a certain time from invoicing, and when the bill is due, that I will cease all work. And I just stopped working. And I let them know, okay, I'm still waiting for your bill, for your payment. I'm not going to be able to do any work for you until I receive it. And those who want to work to continue, which they all have, they make the payment. They have some sort of story or whatever to wait, and I get it. But I've been very fortunate at this point. But when you want to get paid from someone, again, it has to start from a place from the very beginning that you're serious about getting paid. If they don't believe you're serious, they will exploit that. So start from having a contract, clear payment terms, how you want to be paid. Is it, PayPal? Is it you're gonna get a check in the mail? Those are the things that you need. If they have an understanding that they're paying for a service, they're least likely to stiff you. If they've signed a contract stating they understand what happens to them, like collections and things like that, if they don't pay you. It changes people's perspective on the relationship when they're reading a contract and signing.
So is there? Yes, go ahead, Jennifer. We're going to ask the same questions.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, is there a good place to start? Like, we talk about doing this as scrappy right now. So to get contracts out there, if you can't afford an attorney to write one up for you.
There's all kinds of ways. One of the ways I started was I just used the contract that I had found through my job, especially that PR agency. I just made sure I got a copy of one of the contracts there, and I started with that one because that was done by a lawyer, and I just made it better. And I've looked at contracts. I've signed many on behalf of the companies when I worked in corporate so many times, and if I found verbiage I liked, I would just add it to my contract. Second way is to look for templates online. There's all kinds of templates. But there's other companies, like I can vouch for Rocket Lawyer, which I've been a member of. They have great templates in there. And then you can also get an attorney to review the template as part of your membership. And that was a great way. And also I actually, because there's a way for you to sign contracts, distribute and have contracts signed within Rocket Lawyer. That's one of the features I like. because when they get an email, someone gets an email from Rocket Lawyer, Shakira Brown, it's SMB Strategic Media has sent you a contract. It's like, Jesus. And then I've had people back out after seeing that because maybe
They know
they're
you're
going to try a fast one, right? But when they saw, and I'm good. If you're backing out because you weren't going to pay me, I am certainly fine with that. I don't need that type of stress.
Right.
So,
that's for sure.
Yeah. So it was an awesome thing to happen for people who kind of hesitate when they see that, because maybe they were expecting to do a little something shady, and then they realize like, oh wait, this is serious. And also when you sign contracts, have contracts signed through Rocket Lawyer, they're protected almost like an insurance.
Oh, nice. That's good to know.
That's good.
Yeah, I guess the other ones legal. I've never looked into legalism or anything, but I've kept my Rocket Lawyer membership for quite some time, and it has been helpful. I've even used it for personal things like reviewing the leases for an apartment, because you get the free, contract reviews every year. So I've definitely used that. But they also have really great templates, and they allow you to update those templates right in there to fit your particular type of business.
So is there a specific clause or verbiage that you sort of live by now that you add to your contract after sort of learning about it? We all have our favorite ones, right? But is there one that you're kind of like, oh, this is gonna save me, right?
She's
this
asking for green M&Ms. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
No, she's not asking for
That's
things.
for my writer when I become famous. Green M&Ms will not be on that writer for sure.
I like no guarantees. I'm in the business that I can't get public relations. You're not supposed to guarantee you can get someone in print or on TV. Anybody who says I can guarantee you're going to be on CNBC Squawk Box by the end of our contract, that they're a charlatan, because you can't guarantee, because it's out of your control unless you are the booker yourself for the show. You can't. So I put that in there, the no guarantees, because actually, especially in the area of marketing, public relations, you may not receive calls from your ad. You may not receive, I may not be able to get you in your favorite publication. Years ago, I had a client who was a middle-aged man who was maybe not that attractive. He swore that he wanted to be on the cover of GQ. He made a joke about it every client meeting, but we knew he was serious. I said, we would never be able to get this man on the cover. He's not even famous, but he was serious, but we never entertained it. And anybody who will tell you, who will guarantee you something like that is wrong. So I have a no guarantee. We don't know what's going to happen. This is an investment in your business. We'll work hard for you, but there's no guarantee that you're going to end up in, the publication or the TV show or on the podcast that you want to be on. There's just no way to do that.
That is true. I always wonder about that. Some of the ones too, like they're out there, the career. There are like ones we've seen out there for like get a job or resume. Like they guarantee your resume will be viewed how many ever more times or more job calls you'll get. And I'm like, that sounds like a hogwash to me.
You do have to be careful. You have to be careful with some of that. So I have a no guarantee clause because people, I get a lot of people for the first time, they've never actually invested money in public relations. So they're skittish about spending the money, but I have to let them know they're still taking a risk.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get some value out of it. Will you get what you really want? Maybe not. Unless I always used to say, unless I'm there to book you myself or to press the button on the printing press or to hit record and make sure you're there, I can't do that. The only thing that could be guaranteed that you're going to get a placement is advertising, because you're paying to be there, right? Yeah. But that's not normally what I'm selling. I'm usually selling, earned media, which is public relations. And so if you have something that people have an expectation that if they're spending the money, they're going to get the highest level of value, you need to clarify that, there's no guarantee, you're going to work hard, but no guarantee that they're going to get, everything that they believe they should get. And if they sign and say that, they can't come back and say, well, you messed me over here because, I gave you all this money. No, I said there was no guarantees. You saw we were doing the reports. We had our client meetings. or I told you I was working on this and it just didn't work out for this time. And sometimes the clients don't listen to you and things don't work because the client is not compliant. So that's another reason why to have that guarantee in there, because if they don't do what you ask them to do, or if you need them to do, make another investment in something and they don't do it so that you can help what you were going to do, it's, again, no guarantees.
Makes sense.
I guess any final parting thoughts for people thinking about doing a side hustle?
I think that if you want to live a lifestyle where you're not struggling all the time, where you have a couple of extra bucks on hand to do the things that you enjoy doing, having a side hustle is important. You really, in the world we live in today, you really can't just rely on one job. You ladies feel the repercussions of relying on the one job. And I give you kudos for coming up with this great podcast and being able to provide information to people who are affected by the unfortunate pandemic that the world is going through. But it is a wake-up call for many to see that you need to have other streams of income available to you, or be willing to work a second job just so that you can give yourself more breathing room. And some people say they're too tired or whatever, but find something where you're not going to be too tired. I mentioned that my son is streaming, as trying to getting paid through subscriptions on Twitch and things like that. And he was already playing video games. He just decided to monetize it because I kept pressuring him to do it. There's probably something that your audience is doing that can be monetized, that they're already doing. Just look at what you're doing, find out ways you can monetize it. Good friend of mine is retired, but has picked up art because it's always been her first love. And she's got all kinds, Etsy shop, and she keeps finding these different shops. And, she's been creating some really interesting illustrations and art that could be put on a pillow, or that could be used to print fabric for a dress or something like that. And she started exploring another website that called Redbubble that allows you to do a little bit more with your art. She's discovered there are people on there with no artistic skills or training that are making a killing on there. They just come up with whatever they think is cute, and they put it up there and people buy it.
There's hope for me.
Is that what it's called?
Look at you. Both of you going to be on the Redbubble website. So
I don't have much
as you can.
I'm going to be doing that. I love photography, and I don't think I'm that great, but I think a lot of people do like it. So maybe I'll check it out and see if I can monetize my photography.
Yeah, see if there's something there.
Oh my goodness, Jigna. My head feels like it's spinning with like lots of things I wish I would have known when I was younger about how to do a side hustle while we were working. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting. Shakira has a lot of insight, and I like her because she's authentic. We may not always agree with what she might be saying, but she's very authentic. It kind of brings me back with what Courtney Ramsey was saying when one of our previous episodes is, the authentic person is much more so relevant and needed in now than more than ever. And the new generation really looks for that. So I really thank her for all her insights. I jotted down a few of those resources she was talking about. So I'm sure all of us could benefit from this. And if anyone is thinking of a side hustle, you guys listen up. This is the good information.
Yeah, and if you've got a side hustle going and you want to talk about it on the hashtag Laidofflife, let us know too. We'd love to hear about it. So,
absolutely.
All right, well, so then that brings us to the fortune cookie time to see if we have any new exciting fortunes for us, which I hope it means new, like different than I've had in the past. So I'm going to go first this time because I've been having a bad time with the fortune cookies.
Okay, you go first.
All right, here we go. I keep getting weird ones or lots of repeats, so let's see. Mine says learn Chinese. No, I'm sorry. Wrong side. Ask advice, but use your own common sense.
Well, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
It's relevant to today's episode for sure.
It is relevant to today's episode, and I think almost all of them, that you ask advice, but if you're feeling like your gut common sense is telling you to go one way, probably better to stick to that. All right, Jigna, let's see what you got.
Let's see. Mine also says learn Chinese. What's going on? Cookie said, "You really crack me up." That's what Cookie said.
That's awesome.
I needed a laugh today.
A good little laugh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
This one's my best one. I think
that
I'm gonna
is
have
the
to frame
best
this
one. I think you do need to frame that one.
That's
You
a really
crack
good one.
me up.
Well, we would like to thank our sponsor today. This episode has been brought to you by Circuit City, where the service is state of the art.
And out of
Be sure to
business.
check them out. They're hot. Their stocks are just off the charts and over the roof. So be sure to get in on it
I think they're
as
6 feet under.
early as possible. This company is going places. Thank you so much, Circuit City.
Oh, Jigna, you crack me up. With that said, we hope you'll tune in next time or watch some of the other episodes. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. And did I miss anything else?
What? Our website.
Our website, yes, laidofflife.co. So thank you.
We're
Have a good-
everywhere. Bye now.
Bye.